William, in conflict with the French king, was laying waste the town of Mantes, he gave orders for his soldiers to burn it to the ground. The flames roared, and his horse reared up in fright, and threw the conqueror against the iron pommel of his saddle. It was a fatal injury. William had divided his coveted possessions between his 3 sons. His eldest, Robert, he gave the highest prize, the dukedom of Normandy. His second son, William Rufus, he gave the kingdom of England. And to his third son, Henry, he gave 5,000 pounds worth of silver. But the conqueror's sons were not with him when he died. His servants were. They stripped his body and left him lying naked in an empty chamber. William II, William Rufus, so named because of his bright red hair and ruddy complexion, continued his father's policy of a strong central government. When his good-natured elder brother Robert needed money to join the First Crusade, Rufus forced him to pawn the dukedom of Normandy to him for 10,000 marks. Possibly the reason for Rufus's terrible reputation was his constant quarrel with the Church. He even kept the Archbishopric of Canterbury vacant for 4 years, and enjoyed its revenues until a rare illness convinced him that he was dying. In remorse, on his deathbed, as he thought, he appointed the saintly Anselm, Abbot of Bec, to that great office, an appointment he was to greatly regret on his subsequent recovery. Anselm himself, who had no desire for the office, is supposed to have said,
"You plan to place an untamed bull and a feeble old sheep in the same plough under a single yoke. And what will come of it?"
Rufus ruled mercilessly for 13 years, until, in 1100, he was mysteriously killed by an arrow whilst hunting in the New Forest. It is one of the great mysteries of history. Nobody knows who shot him. Was it an accident? Was it a Saxon taking his revenge for his people? Or was it a plot hatched by his younger brother, Henry, who was conveniently a member of the hunting party? All we know, when Rufus's body was brought to the nearby city of Winchester, then the second capital of England, Henry had seized the treasury, and a day later was chosen king. Again we turn to the Anglo-Saxon chronicle.
A few of the peasants carried his corpse to the cathedral at Winchester, on a horse-drawn wagon with blood dripping from it the whole way. There, in the cathedral crossing, under the tower, he was interred, in the presence of many great men, mourned by few. Next year there followed the tower's collapse. I forbear to tell the opinions which were held on this event, lest I seem to believe in trifles, especially since it would have collapsed in any case, even if he had not been buried there, because it was badly built.
Henry I, though mean and cruel, was the ablest of the Conqueror's sons. The first Norman king to be born in England, he married a Scottish princess descended from the Saxon royal line. At his coronation, he promised the Saxons the laws of the old Saxon kings, and during his reign established an ordered system of administration, to become known as the Lion of Justice. But his elder brother, Robert, returned from the Crusades feeling that his was the better claim to the crown, and war broke out between them, first in England, then in Normandy, until in 1106, at the Battle of Tanchebray, Henry, assisted by his Saxon levies, defeated Robert and his Norman knights. Robert, the eldest son of William the Conqueror, spent the remaining 28 years of his life a prisoner in his brother's dungeons. William of Malmesbury, who lived through the reign of Henry I, describes his king.
He was of middle stature. His hair was black and set back on the forehead. His eyes mildly bright. His chest brawny, his body fleshy. He never drank but to allay thirst, execrating the least departure from temperance both in himself and in those about him. His sleep was heavy and interrupted by frequent snoring.
By 1120, Henry had secured his position in England and France, successful in diplomacy and war, when tragedy struck. He had a son who was his great joy in life. One day the prince set sail from Normandy to England in a fine new vessel called the White Ship, and during the night, whilst the prince was carousing with 140 of his followers,